Yat eşke doş dine, şe Sylas Toledo yinchia. Kluga dine nshle, touchni bashchin, kanlachini dash che, turachin dash nala. Nalajin de nasha, aro natin nakish naghai. Political science do NAS yinchtra. Akot ego dine hastin nshle. Hello everyone, family, friends. My name is Sylas Toledo. I am Zio Weaver clan, born for Red Running to Water clan. My maternal grandparents are the Red House People clan, and my paternal grandparents are the Bitterwater People clan. I live in Torreon, New Mexico, and I am 22 years old. I am a political science major, and I have a minor in NIS. In this way, I'm a Navajo male. So my project is titled Treaty Violations and Health Disparities. To start off, I'd like to invite everyone to close your eyes just for a moment and try to imagine the land beneath your feet, not as property or a resource, but as your mother. Alive, breathing, sacred. For many Indigenous people, this is not just a metaphor, it's reality. For my Diné peoples, we see the land not as something to own, but as something that we belong to. Today, I'd like to ask everyone to please step in our shoes and see the land as we see it, not as a backdrop to human life, but as a sacred relative, a sacred being, a teacher that holds the stories, ancestors, and future of my people. For my Diné peoples, we have this belief that the earth is our mother because from a young age we are told stories of Astanagle, or changing woman. We are told that Astanagle is one of our Diné, or holy people. It is said that she is a child of Mother Earth and Father Sky, a direct embodiment of their sacred union. We are told that Astanagle, or changing woman, created the first Diné clans in their image, using pieces of her own skin. From this relationship, we have a kinship with Mother Earth and Father Sky. This is the sole reason why we call them Mother Earth and Father Sky, or Nekiamastan, or Yodikith. From this kinship extends to other children of the earth, such as the mountains, the rivers, the plants, the animals. We don't see them as resources, we see them as relatives. With this kinship, we have a sacred obligation to live in Hózhó. Hózhó means beauty, harmony, balance. It is a Navajo way of life and philosophy, epistemology. So to honor this obligation that we have various songs, prayers, chants, ceremonies, utilizing the beauty way or blessing way, or Hózhó. In these ceremonies, we use corn pollen. Corn pollen, for us Navajos, is a symbol of life because pollen brings life to the plants on the ground, and animals eat the plants. And it's a cycle that continues to bring life to this earth. So this is how I was raised, this is how I was taught from a young age, to see the land as my mother, to see resources such as mountains, rivers, as relatives. I was taught to walk in beauty with all these creation. So when I was a young boy, seeing the scars left behind by the mining industries, whether it be coal, oil, gas, uranium, I didn't see economic development or progress for my people. I saw my mother hurt, wounded. This led me to ask questions as a young boy and college students now, like how did this happen? How did our mother, our land get taken from us, and how has this affected our people? So when I became a senior, I decided to make this topic my research. As a political science student, I decided to focus on treaty violations and health disparities. To answer my questions I had from a young boy and now, I decided to use process tracing as my methodology. Process tracing is a methodology that looks at causal chains or causal links from events to outcomes. So for my project, I am showcasing or looking at the causal links or connections from treaty violations to health disparities, mainly on uranium mining. For my research, I looked into my Navajo Treaty of 1868, mainly on Article 13, which entails that the U.S. government has an obligation to ensure that our reservation is a viable and permanent home. I also looked into health documents, such as the EPA, CDC, and IHS data records. And finally, I looked into mining records, such as mining leases, mining operation data. After many months of research, this is what I found. As you can clearly see, this is an overwhelming amount of information, amount of causal links that have negative effects on my people. now I'm going to dive deeper into 3 main causal links or connections that I believe have the most domino effects on my people. The first causal link I want to talk about is the US government withholding vital health information from my people. During the 1940s, the US Public Health Service did secret studies on Navajo miners, documenting cancer links, but they didn't disclose this information to the workers. So this led to Navajo workers working in the mines with no protection. They breathed in those harmful radiated air particles. And from this, those Navajo miners brought back materials from the mines, such as lumber that held up the tunnels, rocks, back home to build their homesteads for their families. So I believe the US government broke their treaty because they didn't disclose this vital information to my people. Because how can you have a permanent home if the very walls of your home are poisoning you? How can the jobs that you got to provide for your family hurting you? How can this be a permanent home? This led to, in the 1970s, about 150 miners died from radiation-induced lung cancer, which is 4 times higher than the US average. The second causal link I want to talk about is tribal allotment. For those who don't know, as Navajos, we have an allotment system where you have to apply through the BIA to use the land to build your homes. So in the 80s, after the major 1979 Church Rock Hill spill, where approximately over 94 million gallons of waste entered the water systems, many Navajo communities' families want to leave their homelands. They applied for new tribal allotments, new land allotments. Many of these families were faced with issues such as BIA issues, lack of infrastructure on other safer parts of the reservation, and land disputes. Because as Navajo people, these tribal land allotments are given to certain families, and these families have held these land allotments for many decades. So as Navajo people, you can't just pick up your family and leave to a different part of the reservation, because that reservation, that land belongs to different families. So after 5 years, many of these families that decided to leave gave up. So many of them were faced with 2 choices: to stay and risk illness and even death, or leave and not be able to afford health care, housing. So I believe the US government broke their treaty, because how can you have a permanent home if you have nowhere to go? I believe the US government failed because they didn't provide timely alternative housings for these families seeking to leave their homelands for safer places to live. So after all this, when families try to leave, about 1 in 5 relocated Navajo reported chronic respiratory illness, which is about 3 times higher than the US average. The last and third causal link I want to talk about is when the Navajo Nation sued the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency. In 2014, the Navajo Nation sued the EPA over their failed upcomings of trying to clean the mines. The EPA said that they have no obligation because they cited the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, stating that they have no obligation to clean up. But in 2015, the EPA with other companies came out with settlement. They declared a 5-year program where they said, in 5 years, we're going to try and clean up these mines. But still to this day, only 9% of the 500 plus mines still there have only been cleaned up. So I believe the US government has violated their treaty with us, because they acknowledged the harm. They set up a 5-year program, but they still haven't made progress. How can you have a permanent home if your land is still contaminated? How can you have a home if you can't let your children play outside in these contaminated lands? Because of this, 1 in 3 Navajo people still use radiated, contaminated uranium water, which is compared to the rest, where only 1% of rural Americans use this type of water. So over this research, over the many months of research, I found the inescapable conclusion. Many of these health disparities, these cancer clusters, these cancer deaths, disease diagnosis and death can be traced back to violations on Article 13 or the Navajo Treaty. This isn't just history, this is an ongoing system of harm. As Diné, there's no dichotomy between spirit and nature. We are of this earth. So when you find an environmental issue, you're also going to find a social issue. Nobody can live without clean air, clean water, clean land, for this are the basic terms of what it means to be people of the earth or indigenous. There's no happy ending for this story because this story is still unfolding. If we stand together, rooted in indigenous and non-indigenous, rooted in respect, I believe we can bring back balance or Hózhó with all of creation. Thank you and Nikia.